So, something a bit different this time. Not a book per se, but um, manga, specifically Blended Lustrous by Haruko Ichikawa. And I have read this before, up to volume 11, so I know it's coming. But I just wanted to, as I'm going through it for a second time, I want to look at specifically change, since that's a large part of this. Um, it it yeah, it's all about change and sort of um, the ship of Theseus experiment. A lot, sort of, it doesn't come up a lot, but it comes to my mind a lot while I'm reading these. Like the ship of Theseus is sort of the thought experiment where there's a ship from Theseus, or of Theseus, and if you one of the planks is rotten, so they change it out for a new one. And is it still the same ship after that plank has been changed, or has the ship become a totally new ship? And if it's still the same ship after you change the plank, at what point, as you're changing planks, does it become a new ship? If you've totally changed all the planks over time or all at once, or is it still the same ship? And then if you do change all the planks, what if you take all the planks that you had changed that were originally part of the ship and build a new ship with those planks? Is that ship the original ship of Theseus, or is that a brand new ship? So it's all about identity and change. So the people in this book, the Lustrous as they're called, they are immortal beings whose consciousness is the emergent property of a complex of microbiotic organisms, microbiotic inclusions that exist throughout sort of a gemstone structure. So their consciousness, they don't have a central nervous system. Their consciousness is decentralized and diffused throughout their entire body. So they can lose parts of themselves, and they will continue to exist. And should their body be totally shattered, they can easily be rebuilt, and they will remain. They will exist. So they're essentially immortal, unless there's some way to bleach the inclusions throughout their entire body and just destroy them. But that hasn't ever come up, so I don't think it is. The only issue is, because their consciousness is distributed throughout their entire body, if they lose parts of their body and cannot recover them, then they lose parts of their memory. And since memory is so much so tied to identity, that can cause change. Like, if you think about humans, we change as we gain new experience, and thus memories from those experiences. If we didn't have the ability to create new memories, I don't think we would change. Anyways, so these beings, they do not change a great deal at all, actually. They, the youngest one, the protagonist, Phosphophilite, is 300 years old, and they are very, not childlike, but they're very kind of immature, kind of fun, playful, lazy, lacking, irresponsible. They want to work, or not work, but like they want to be a fighter like everyone else. The oldest one is like 3,500 years old. And they're a bit more mature. But they all still, I don't know if it's being immortal or the fact that they sort of experience the same thing day in and day out, that they haven't changed that much, or they don't change that much. So through, I guess it's in the second volume, we sort of get the history of this world, and in the first that it was sort of Earth, or not Earth, but it was struck by a series of asteroids, 6 of them, and each time they were struck, part of the planet would break off and become like an additional moon, I think, or something. And it was something like by the third one or something that humans ceased to exist. But we find out that humans evolved and sort of split into 3 different beings: flesh, spirit, and body. Or sorry, flesh, spirit, and bone. Flesh is body. The flesh sort of returned to the sea, where it was safer, and evolved into the admirabilis, which are sort of like sea-based. Admirabilis, yeah. They're kind of sea-like creatures. They still are mortal. They exist and die. The spirit became these Lunarians who live on the moon, and so far what we've seen of the Lunarians is that they, roughly every 3 days, they come back to Earth and attempt to kill, or not kill, but destroy and take back the Lustrous with them to the moon. And we know that they also have in captivity the Admirabilis, that they use sort of as farm animals, as livestock. And it's their goal to sort of reunite with the two and become humans again, or something. And of course the bone became the Lustrous, these gemstone beings that sort of we follow through the main series. So yeah, in terms of change, that's sort of the backstory, but in terms of the change through the plot, we have it's phosphophylite, or phosphophylite. Anyways, they want to change. They want to become a fighter, but because of their hardness level as a gem, phosphophylite has on the most hardness scale is 3.5, so it's very weak. It shatters very easily. They can't fight. And they mentioned like they want to change. They want to get better at fighting. I should also mention there's a person, sensei, who's not one of the Lustrous, but is sort of their caretaker, their master. They're sort of a father figure to them. He is sort of so much older than all of them and so much stronger. Whenever he shows up to fight the Lunarians, he literally snaps his fingers and they dissipate. But he's sort of a mystery at the moment. But anyways, Faust wants to change, wants to become a better fighter. And this is sort of semi-encouraged by Sensei. He's kind of okay with it. We also meet Cinnabar, who, like the mineral, I guess Cinnabar is a mineral, exudes a poison, which is like mercury, and so everything they touch dies, and so they've been sort of forced apart from the rest of the sort of society of the Lustrous, sort of a self-imposed exile where they only work at night. The Lustrous are sort of photosynthetic. Their inclusions are photosynthetic, so they are diurnal and sort of fall asleep at night, except for Cinnabar, because the mercury is able to harness light or hold in light so that they can go all night. So they sort of have imposed themselves on the night shift, even though the Lunarians never come at night. And Fos meets with Cinnabar and decides they're going to help find Cinnabar a job that they can do, like one that's sort of useful and helpful, one that they enjoy. But Cinnabar mentions that they want to change, and how if they're just going to be a poisonous, sort of useless night patrol when there's no need for a night patrol, then like either they want to change or they want to die. There's a lot of like sort of desire for death or for a ceasing of existence for these people, even though they're immortal and don't really understand death. One of the Admirabilis tries to explain death to Fos, and they're like, is it like sleeping? Like, they don't really understand the concept. And the other one, so we have Fos, who's too weak, Cinnabar, who is too poisonous and is too set apart, and then we have on the sort of the other extreme, we have Diamond, who is the hardest, but they also, because Diamond, structurally Diamond is very weak. If hit along certain planes, it shatters relatively easily. So even though they're super hard, they shatter if hit the right way. So, and they work with another Diamond class person, Bort, who is not a single crystalline structure, but many, and thus is both the hardest and the toughest to destroy. And by comparing themselves to Bort, Diamond sees that they're not a true Diamond. They're not as strong as they could be or they should be, and so that even Diamond, who's on the most hardness scale at 10, wants to change and sort of sees themselves as useless in comparison to Bort. So all throughout the sort of group of different Lustrous, there's a desire for change, and we do the first bit of change. It comes when Fos sort of comes in contact with Cinnabar's mercury poison, as Cinnabar's saving Fos, actually. Fos gets some of the mercury on them and has to have it scraped off, and so those few parts that were touched the mercury had to be scraped off and discarded. And there's sort of a question of, have you lost any of your memories from this? Because this is like the first time you've lost a part of yourself, but they can't recall, but they seem the same. It doesn't seem to have affected them. There's not really any big change. But the sort of next, in the second volume, they are taking one of the Admirabilis back to the sea, and it's sort of against the wishes of Sensei and everyone else, but Fos is determined to find something for Cinnabar, and the Admirabilis suggests that, if you take me back to my sort of sea kingdom, there's new stuff there you haven't experienced before, maybe we can find an answer for you. So they go back into this sort of deep sea, and it turns out the Admirabilis was sort of using as a trap. They were luring Fos down there so that they could sort of give them up to the Lunarians in exchange for the Admirabilis' brother. But of course the Lunarians don't respect this trade and try to get more out of this, what is the name, Ventriculus or something is the name of the Ventricosus is the name of the sort of king of the sea peoples, and so with the help of the brother, the Admirabilis managed to kill the Lunarians, and they are going to trade. I use Fos to sort of try and trade for the rest of the Admirabilis, and Fos is like, I totally get that. Like, I didn't realize that your whole family and species was sort of held hostage. Like, you know what? I'm sort of useless as a fighter down here. So yeah, if you can use me to get your friends back, like, that's great. You go for it. Um, and seeing that, they sort of feel guilty and they decide to save Fos and send them back to the other Lustrous. Um, but during the attack, Fos's legs were shattered and the fragments lost. I'm not sure if they were taken back to the moon or what happened to them, but they're gone. And so when they bring Fos back to land, they leave with them two long sort of spines of a seashell that's made out of agate type of gemstone. Anyways, in the hopes that the Lustrous can use those as replacement legs. And so they do. Fos gets these new legs. The doctor Rutile uses this agate and also whatever they can of some material more similar to the 3.5 phosphofolite and creates new legs for them. Now the agate is like a hardness of 7, so it's quite different, so there's kind of a question of whether the inclusions will take to this new material, but eventually it does, and Fos is like now super fast, and like it takes them a while to control that speed. And they're sort of like, can I fight now? Like I'm so much different. I'm so much better than I was before. And that's another trend is change is always seen as good. Like the Admirabilis, when they give up Fos, they say that if we use Fos to sort of trade for our people again, we're no better than Lunarians. She said we have to change. So like the Admirabilis believe that they have to change for the good. And here Fos's change with their new legs is also seen as a change for the good. And so Fos is then allowed to go out onto sort of scouting duty or whatever. Although they have new legs, they still can barely hold a sword. It's like too heavy for them because they're still just a weak 3.5, the rest of them. But sort of the main change here that's mentioned but not the sort of consequences of which aren't fully explored is that, or not fully explored by the characters, is that Fos, in losing their legs, lost at least, or like roughly 1/3 of their memories. And you can sort of see that their personality changes. They become sort of a less carefree, silly, immature, but like maybe slightly more serious. But there is a distinct change. This happens at the end of Volume 2, so we don't get to see that much of the change. But there is a change in losing that much of their memories. And like for example, the Admirabilis told them the story of humans and how they split into the Lunarians, the Lustrous, and the Admirabilis. And when Sensei asks for a report, all Fos can remember is humans, which sort of freaks Sensei out. Like, I don't know if he is a human. He could be human. But Fos is like, that's all I can remember, humans. So they have lost quite a bit. But, yeah. That's just the first 2 volumes. There's 9 more to go that are already out. The 12th is coming later this summer. So I'm sort of catching up in anticipation of that. And trying to focus in on, like I said, the changes, because changes certainly occur. But yeah, it's a very interesting take. Creating a species that can lose memories but is immortal, which makes change difficult or very easy, but never with good consequences. So yeah, we'll probably do the next 2 volumes in another video.